we've been reporting, President Biden gave a speech in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania this afternoon. He delivered a pointed message about guns in his remarks. Take a listen.
Guns are the #1 killer of children in America. Of children, and #1. More children die from guns than active duty police and active duty military personnel combined.
So for more on the president's speech and Pennsylvania politics, Julia Terruso joins us now. She's a political reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Hi, Julia. Good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. So the president has made a number of visits to the state. It's, of course, where he grew up. Can you kind of remind us of Pennsylvania's place in recent presidential elections and why Biden might be spending a lot of time there this fall?
Oh, sure. Pennsylvania has become the ultimate bellwether in presidential races, and one of the biggest electoral prizes. The state went for Obama twice, then flipped parties and supported President Trump in 2016, and then supported President Biden in 2020 by pretty narrow margins, about 1% of about a 1% difference that gave the state to Biden. So it is just the ultimate purple state. It is the ultimate battleground. And, I think that's why you see both President Biden and former President Trump having planned events here in the next week, where Biden is coming 3 times and former President Trump will be here on Saturday to rally for his Republican-endorsed candidates in the Senate and governor's races.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about those races, too, because these are key races that everybody's going to be watching. On the Senate side, this is one that could help determine the balance of power in the Senate. I want to show some recent polls. If you take a look at your screen, recent polls show Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman pulling away from Dr. Mehmet Oz, the Republican, by as much as double digits. Here's a recent Franklin and Marshall poll where he's leading there. And in another poll by as little as 4 points, so a tighter race. But it's interesting here because this is a marquee matchup. This is a seat that is held by a retiring Republican. So why has Oz really struggled to gain traction with his campaign so far?
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that Oz's troubles, you could go back to the primary. He won a really tight GOP primary that actually went to a recount. So the majority of Republicans in the state didn't support Mehmet Oz in the primary, whereas Fetterman won every single county in Pennsylvania in that Democratic contest. So they started out on sort of different playing fields. And Fetterman has done a pretty effective job of continuing to build momentum and of attacking Oz on this premise that he's not from Pennsylvania originally. He's spent most of his life in New Jersey, that can't relate to the Pennsylvania everyman, pointing to his kind of celebrity elite status. And polling does show that, voters care about where Oz is from and his connections to the state. It is notable, or somewhat surprising, though, that, that margin has really stayed in Fetterman's favor, given that he's been off the campaign trail. He's back on now, but, he had a stroke days before the Democratic primary, was off the campaign trail for about 3 months, and yet has still managed to maintain that lead.
Yeah, I want to ask a little bit about that because, I'm curious whether his health is factoring into his campaign, whether voters you talk to are commenting on it. I mean, I know his opponent, Dr. Oz, has mentioned vegetables, and that has become something of a, sparring contest between the two. Can you kind of explain a little bit of that and how his health is factoring into this campaign?
Sure. So the vegetable video heard around the world was a appearance that Mehmet Oz made at a grocery store, kind of a campaign video trying to call out President Biden and inflation that so many Americans are suffering with right now. But it was a bit of an awkward video. He flubbed the name of the grocery store. He put together a crudité platter that was heavily mocked online. And it was kind of this moment that went viral on Twitter and that Fetterman's campaign certainly seized upon. Oz, I think, has started shifting the tone a little bit, saying, Fetterman is very prevalent on Twitter, but we don't see him much. Voters don't see him much, and kind of drawing into question how serious his health issues are. Now, Fetterman himself has said he's expected to make a full recovery, that he's on his way to that. But he acknowledges that he has some lingering speech issues, some lingering auditory problems. And that's the sort of thing that could really impact how well he can do in a debate, which is something that Mehmet Oz has certainly seized the opportunity to challenge him to. So that's the latest in sort of the back and forth there.
Yeah, interesting to think about those debates in that context. I want to ask about the governor's race, because this is another key race to watch. And you've had 8 Republicans, or I should say 8 more Republicans, who are backing the Democratic gubernatorial candidate. That's Josh Shapiro. He's facing the Trump-backed Republican candidate, Doug Mastriano, who, of course, is one of the top election deniers in the country. So this now brings the total of 17 Republican officials or state lawmakers who have backed Shapiro. What is the significance of this? And is this a sign that Shapiro is gaining traction among Republicans? How do you see this race playing out?
I think there were Republicans for Shapiro to appeal to before the general election even started. You know, in the primary, there was a group of Republicans who had banded together to fight against Mastriano winning the nomination, because they did think he represented a side of the Republican Party that was a little too extreme, a little too MAGA. And we're seeing Shapiro really capitalize on that opportunity with a number of Republican endorsements. There's actually 2 Republican super PACs that are backing his campaign. So I think it's showing continued momentum for Shapiro in a lane that can really bolster things for him. Now, I'll note, you know, the polling in that race ranges a little bit too. We've seen as high as 7 or 8% Shapiro lead, and we've seen as low as just a couple percentage points. So, you know, as is often the case, as we started talking about, things are often closer in Pennsylvania than one might think.
All eyes in Pennsylvania yet again, and we know if the candidates are going there, we will be talking to you a lot. Julia Terruso, thank you so much for your time and reporting. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.